two writers, one just starting out, the other a bestseller. Join James Blatch and Mark Dawson and their amazing guests as they discuss how you can make a living telling stories. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Yes, hello and welcome. Happy New Year to you. Welcome to 2018 and the Self-Publishing Formula podcast. And we've got our very own landmark, haven't we, Mark? Our landmark.
Landmark, Mark. Yeah, we do. We're 100 today. So that means we've been doing this for nearly 2 years.
We've been doing it for nearly 2 years. 100, I think that's quite an achievement, week in, week out. And we've had some cracking interviews in that time as well. And we've got, I should have at least a cricket bat to wave in the air for our century. I haven't got a cricket bat, but I do have a lightsaber.
Oh dear.
So there's our, just acknowledging to the other Jedis that we've made our 100th anniversary.
This will be the last episode.
the last Jedi episode. Thank you for saying congratulations to us. If you've just said that, if you've just muttered along in your morning jog or your drive listening to us. So thank you for your support over those 100 episodes. It means everything to us, and we enjoy doing the podcast, and we've got into quite a routine now, and I think there is a lot of work that goes on in the podcast, and especially as we film everything, and we've improved its sort of production value over time. But we also have a rhythm and a routine to it, which I think makes it easy. I try to make it as easy as possible for you, although people have just missed 5 minutes of you shouting at cables before you.
Yes. Yeah, I've been lots of cable issues today, and then my headphones didn't work because I hadn't plugged them in properly, and so I decided to throw them across the room. So I don't have headphones on.
But that's it. But we're here now, and that's just, shall we say, the first 100 of the Self-Publishing Formula podcast, and we hope there'll be at least 100 more, maybe centuries more than that. Good. And, we often talk about how busy we all are. It's been a very busy time of year. We are recording this in full disclosure just before Christmas. So it's like Christmas Day is in, I think it's a week today, isn't it?
What?
Is it?
Is it?
I think it is.
Presents. No, it's a week today. Yeah, we're recording it on the Monday before Christmas. So
yeah. So this will go out beginning of 2018. But just one of the things that we do is to batch a little bit here and there. And this just means that going into Christmas, everything is done through to the beginning of January. So we can actually take our foot off the gas a little bit for that Christmas week, which is very important. And if you're on the courses, just be aware that during Christmas week, if you email us on support, you will get an answer. It won't necessarily be 5 minutes after you've emailed us, as it often is the rest of the year. So we'll try and take a little bit of time.
James will be drunk.
And I get drunk on Christmas Eve and sober up a couple of days after New Year's Day. So that's how that rolls.
Just about to say, if we're batching our episodes, you should really change your name.
James Batch.
James Batch.
My name is Batch. James Batch. But this is actually a really fantastic, cheesy local radio link, isn't it? Because what we're talking about here is time management, about the things that you can do.
Oh, yes.
See what I'm doing there? Things that you can do to make things possible. And who is it? Who's the big Johnny
Lee Dumas?
Dumas, who's a big podcast guy, and he does a podcast every day. And people say to him, how can you do a podcast every day? And he batches. So he probably does 2 days a month podcasting, but he gets everything done in those 2 days. That's one of the tips and tricks that we've taken to try and make sure this happens. And you and I are very keen that our podcast remains contemporaneous. And some podcasts we know are recorded in their entirety many, many weeks ahead of them going out. But we always want to be talking about, at least a couple of weeks, no more, before something going out. So that means that we are at least getting together once a week to do this. So there's a balance to be had in terms of batching. But yeah, we are going to be talking about time management. Before we do that, I do want to mention actually that I've been on a podcast. I've been on Paul Teague's podcast. He has a very good interview manner. Paul's a bit like me in his background in that he was a broadcast professional. He worked, I think, in the independent sector. I was BBC, but I was happy to talk to him. And Paul Teague interviewed me about my book writing, and I know he's a listener to the podcast, and he did say, we listen every week, and we often wonder, James, what's happened to your book? You don't mention it very often. So in that podcast is an absolute warts and all description of where I am with my book, should you want to listen to that. So there's been some good feedback on it, actually. So I shall put the link into the show notes. If you're on YouTube, it'll be in the comments below. And if you go onto our website, you'll see the link to that podcast there. So thank you, Paul, for taking an interest in SPF and me. It's good to have you part of the community. And I was very impressed with his interview structure as well. I was thinking, listening to him, that he does short, precise questions, which is how you should do it. Good. Right. So time management. Is this something that comes naturally to you, Mark, or do you follow a methodology?
No, not really. I just kind of cram as much in as I can, I suppose. We're all under the cosh of it at the moment, but with various things going on, it is just a question of getting into the office at 8:30 most mornings, and then working through, perhaps taking an hour to go for a walk at lunchtime. Well, I didn't today, and just pushing through as much as possible. So do the writing first, then answer emails, do SPF stuff. There's a lot going on, and yeah, I could probably do with someone to put a bit of structure in there, because sometimes it can feel like you're swimming upstream all the time. There's always something else.
Yeah. Well, our guest today is Kitty Bucholtz, and she's become a bit of an expert in this specifically for authors. So that's why this interview is so great and why we wanted to do it. And Kitty's put together a quite detailed PDF giving an outline structure of approaching time management for authors specifically. And you can get that by going to selfpublishingformula.com/time management, all one word. And in there also is a bonus code to get $50 off her course, which I think is $150. I think I've got that right. So that's definitely well worth having as well. So let's hear from Kitty, and then Mark and I, if we can find the time, we'll squeeze a chat in afterwards. Okay, here we are. Kitty Bucholtz.
Yes.
Bucholtz.
That's right, Bucholtz.
That is, I was just saying to you off air, not something I would have read your name and immediately pronounced it like that, but...
Yeah, well, what I've heard from an AT&T operator was that if I was old enough to have watched the original Magnificent Seven, and if I could speak like I lived in Germany, it would be something like Bucholtz.
Bucholtz,
but
okay.
I can't do that.
I've been to a town in Germany called Buchholz, which probably is similar. So maybe that's where the name comes from originally. But
I
anyway,
think it is, yeah.
Kitty I can cope with. And we should mention, for those people who are watching this on YouTube rather than just listening to it on their jog or morning commute, there is a large, furry, inanimate animal behind you, along with the very familiar Post-it notes plotting system going on.
That's right.
And a superhero on your left-hand shoulder. So it's a pretty perfect SPF author's environment.
Yeah, we've got Wonder Woman, we've got the cuddly bear, and we've got the sticky note outline.
Yeah.
We're ready to work.
We're ready to go. We are ready to go. Okay, look, Kitty, we're going to talk about time management, which I know is your speciality. I know you've got a giveaway as well for the audience, and a little bit of a discount as well, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But let's start, as we always do, with a bit about you. And I know you're somebody who wanted to write, wanted to get going. You were hawking around the traditional industry, and that didn't quite work for you. Is that right?
It didn't. I just happened to get into it at a time when chick lit was something I had just pretty much found out about. I read the first couple of chapters of some books and I went, oh my gosh, if there weren't any rules about writing romance, I totally would have done it this way. And so I rewrote the first part of what I had been working on, this kind of contemporary regular romance. I had started some Christian romance also, but so I was working on this contemporary, rewrote the first couple of chapters, read it to the two writers I was with on this writer's retreat. They were kind of rolling on the ground laughing, and one of them said, I'm sending that to my agent. And then I had an agent, and it was, wow, this is amazing. This is like the story you want to get, right? 4.5 years, and chick lit had pretty much died about the time that I discovered it. And pretty much all the editors were saying, yeah, we're pretty much not buying that anymore. So why don't you send us something else? But what was selling a lot at that time, my agent was like, send me some hot, steamy sex stuff. I can sell that. And I just couldn't get myself to, I'm like, can I write something around sex? Can I just mention how great sex is, but not actually write slot A and point
so
B?
He or she wanted full-on sort of erotica books. As a traditionally published, that surprised me a little bit, because I know that has taken off a lot as an ebook phenomenon. It surprised me the traditional industry were after it.
Well, it wasn't really erotica. It's just that there are lines of, Harlequin. Well, actually, some of them are gone now. But there are a lot of lines that they do still require 2 or 3 sex scenes in a book. and it needs to be, more than a paragraph. I was willing to write a paragraph.
Yeah.
So it was the wrong time and place, So 4.5 years, we tried different things. I just couldn't find something that she liked, that, something that she wanted to send out. And so finally I was just like, okay, wait, I've heard of this Kindle KDP thing. I'm going to go to the RWA National Conference one more time. I flew out the night after I graduated with my master's degree in creative writing in Sydney, flew to New York, pitched to everybody, got lots of great responses about that. Sounds like a great story. It looks like you're a good writer, but we just would have no idea where to sell it, how to sell it. And I thought, well, I'm pretty sure I can find people to sell it to. So, I took these crazy courses that were in Word, online classes from other romance writers who were like, okay, you do this in Word, and then you do this, and then you upload it. And if it doesn't work, go back and do this other thing in Word. Like there was no other wonderful software that we have now. Okay. And I put out that first Chicklet book in September 2011.
Okay. And that was your self-published, uploaded yourself from Word.
That's right.
And how did that go?
It was much like most people find. People who knew me were happy to give it a try, but 7 billion people in the world didn't know who I was. So it took me a really long time to get to the point where I even, hit the $1,000 mark in sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where are you now?
Now I am at the point where, so my husband and I move around a lot because he works in the film industry. So he'll have a year job, a 4-month job, whatever, which is why I'm living out of suitcases right this second, because we just finished moving back from New Zealand and we're not sure where we're moving next. So
you must have a big suitcase for that bear.
The bear is new. I don't know what I'm going to do with the bear. I'm not sure there's a box big enough.
His own airline seat.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
But so what I've been trying to do is figure out in the midst of, filling out paperwork for visas and, making sure passports are updated and calling movers and stuff, how am I going to get my work done? So when Mark opened his Facebook Ads for Authors, now Ads for Authors class, I was like, okay, I've got to try this, because doing nothing, the advice about just write more great books isn't working. I have great books out that have, 4.5-star average reviews. So I'm pretty sure that they're, readable, but haven't found the discoverability part yet. So that is the tricky part that's been happening with all the moving. And it's part of why the time management courses that I've been teaching have gotten actually more and more helpful for other people, because I'm not the person who's lived in the same house for the last 20 years and has the same setup and the same structure to my day. So I can help people to figure out in all these unique and individual situations, how am I going to get my work done?
Yeah, well, that's what we're going to talk about. And I think we all know, from our own experience, that moving house and those big sort of life events, they do put everything back significantly. They're very difficult to keep normal work going around. And that's an extreme version of it. But all of us, and I speak personally here as well, struggle with allocating time to the things that need to be done.
Exactly.
So I think this is some way you can help us. You can help me. It's usually the way I do these podcast interviews is I basically just use them for my own benefit, and then hopefully someone else will get someone will get some benefit as well. So let's talk about this. First of all, I guess this was just a necessity for you. You had to master time management.
Yeah, because what was happening is that I would just keep waiting until we settled down. And then I'd get 2 or 3 months into a project. I was probably half or 3/4 of the way through the first draft and flying. I mean, everything in the world was going great for me. And then I got a phone call from my husband that he was lying on the pavement. He had just gotten hit by a big semi truck on his motorcycle. That changes your life, He's okay now. I call him Iron Man because he has a bunch of titanium in his leg, but
Wow.
But yeah, any of these things could happen to anybody, big things, little things. And suddenly you're like, but now I've been derailed and what do I do? And so what I found is that if you can think of all the things that have derailed you in the past, whether little things like, well, what's about ready to derail us for the weekend is that we are finally making time to watch Punisher on Netflix all the way through. Big Marvel fans, even though I also love Wonder Woman, my DC girl. Yep. So if you can figure out all the things that do normally derail you and come up with a plan for each of them for how you're going to manage it. Like, I'm pretty sure that I just heard Joanna Penn say that she took Facebook app off of her phone. She's just not going to use it on her phone anymore. Well, if she had been using it a lot on her phone when she should have been maybe doing something else, she's already freed up more time that she can be doing on the important things in her life. So anytime that we can figure out a way around, it's sort of like having a fire extinguisher. If there is a fire, you know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what's also interesting, just on that point, is how individual all of these are, because I'm pretty certain Mark Dawson is the opposite of Joanna Penn in that he only has social media on his phone. He doesn't have it on his desktop.
Yeah, so and that's something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and right. For me, that's slightly more logical as well, because when you're on your desktops, when you can be writing and doing more productive things, and when you're, sitting on a bus or something, it's when you got your phone, you could perhaps do social media. But anyway, obviously for Jo, that works differently.
Right. And she probably has some other different reason for it as well.
Yeah.
So that's exactly right. If you can figure out what are the things that usually get you off track, it might be, oh my gosh, I was just supposed to be, I still went. I was teaching a how to write and finish a short story at an 8th grade class yesterday. And it wasn't until I was 5 minutes from the school that I got a text from the teacher that she wasn't going to be there, which kind of threw me into the but, and then I just had to focus on, okay, remember, I'm not here for this teacher. I'm here for the kids. You can keep going with, what you're supposed to do. But she got derailed because her son had some sort of breathing attack and she was in the ER all night. These things happen. I was really, really focused on getting someplace fast, and I hit a curb and I, flattened my tire and I didn't get there at all. These things happen. So some of them you can't really do much about, except for, I have a tendency to have a notebook in my purse in case I'm someplace where I'm in a waiting situation, and some apps on my phone that I can do at least a little bit of sort of important stuff, if I'm in a waiting situation. But then there are things like, there's an app called Freedom that I think is still available only for Mac users. And it allows you, it's actually got a whole bunch more aspects to it than when I first got it, but it allows you to turn off the internet entirely to your computer, or just to turn it off for certain websites, and you can turn it off just for from 10 to noon. That's your writing time, no internet. So there are things like that. If internet things are just things that you just cannot keep yourself from doing. And then, you just have to think of what are the distractions in your life. Right this second, the window in front of me is looking out. The back fence of my friend's house used to look out over just dirt, and now there's a big subdivision being built. And so I have to put on my noise-canceling headphones and not be facing the window, because otherwise I'm like, oh, what are they doing? Oh, that's how you build a house that way. And I just can't focus.
Yeah. It's like when you're subconsciously looking for a reason not to knuckle down and do some work, and suddenly doing the cleaning, getting the vacuum cleaner out is suddenly a pressing priority. But
that's right.
Yeah, so that's I can see that on a micro level, I guess is the way of looking at it. We can do that, and we often do that. So we'll think, oh, I'm distracted by that, so pull the blind down, or the sun's in my eyes, whatever. But the macro level, pinpointing why you're not getting stuff done.
Yes.
That's something I struggle with a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So again, you have to think about your own personality, what it is that works for you. And if you're not sure, you'll have to try a couple of things until you find the thing that this works for me. So what I found, and what a lot of, neuroscientists and brain study people say, is that having a list of things in your head isn't as effective as having them written down. The other thing about having things written down is that, and what I'd like to do if there's time is I'm going to kind of cover everything that I cover in my class, but just in bullet points, so that we can get people actually working on their calendar for 2018.
Let's do it.
All right. So basically, this is the way that I look at it. From an overview standpoint, I think the best thing to do is to do a brain dump of everything onto a piece of paper, a master list of everything, not just writing related, but if you've got kids, family events, vacations, all the holidays that that you'll be off for a day or a week or whatever, planning in. When we get to that point, you'll have to also keep in mind that you need to plan in some sick days, emergency days, kids sick days. So you can't plan every single minute of the 365 days of the year, because there's just no room for error, and there's always a little bit of that in life. Okay, so once you've got the master list down, depending on whether or not this is the first time you've done it this way, and you have a tendency to have a lot of big goals, you might need to breathe into a paper bag for a minute, because I have a tendency to put so much stuff. Yeah, it is shocking. Like, how could you think that you could get all that done? But that is why you're not always getting everything done, because you have a whole bunch of plans, and they're not really specifically planned out. We know about the SMART goals. You need to have goals that are, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time related. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that master list, and we're kind of going to prioritize it, and we're going to create some SMART goal, aspects to it. So for instance, maybe you have 2 kids, and one's in soccer and one's in band. And so there's going to be some events that you need to go to. And at first you might not really have any idea what dates they might be, but you probably have an idea, 10 nights out of the school year per kid. You can just sort of write that down on to the side or something. You want to make sure that you've got anything that has to do with, if you do anything having to do with, what am I trying to say? Helping your parents, taking care of your parents, anything like that. It's a lot of the things that we forget are the reason why we think we have more time than we do. They're the things that we do every day that we don't actually plan that time for. So, for instance, I'm a big proponent of getting enough sleep. However much is the right amount, for you. For my husband, it's like 6.5, 7.5. For me, it's definitely 8. It's got to be 8. But then all the other things that you have to do: brush your teeth, take a shower, get dressed. If you're a woman, do your hair, put on your makeup. So in that way, a woman who does those things has automatically got less hours in the week than a man who's like, I'm in, I'm out, I ran my fingers through my hair, I'm done.
Although something that's the same for both is, I've noticed this, is going to the gym. So I'll do these in the winter, so I tend to go to the gym and do a little class. It's 40 minutes, and I think in my stupid little mind, that's 40 minutes. It's not 40 minutes.
Right.
Because I go up to my bedroom, I put on the gym stuff that I wear. I've got to get there a bit early so I can change into actual shorts and stuff. Then I'm going to get back and have a shower. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yes.
But I'm stupid. So I think, I can do 40 minutes today. And then I'll work out, it's suddenly 5 o'clock and I've got to pick the kids up.
But if you were thinking to yourself, all right, I need an hour and a half a day, 4 days a week, and then you planned it in, you wouldn't be alarmed by it, you wouldn't be surprised, and you wouldn't feel guilty about, my goodness, doing something good for yourself, which is why it's one of those things that I don't know why we feel that way, but we feel bad about taking time to do something healthy for ourselves.
Yeah.
But if it's planned,
to be guilty.
Yeah, I think so. And so what you're going to find is that there's going to be a few things that probably need to be moved on to next year's list. If you're thinking, I need to finish this series and start the next series, and so that's 5 books, and then you look at all the other things that you have to do. Now, maybe you're single, you live alone, you don't even have a cat. I mean, there's no reason to think that you can't get an awful lot more done than somebody who's, married, family, whatever. But looking at your own life, do you, just looking at the master list, do you think really you can get all that done? Maybe we should move some of it to next year's list. So that's the next step, because you want to walk a line between, if you're feeling already, if you start the year feeling discouraged, you need to give yourself some easy wins, particularly in the beginning. You need to build your confidence back up. I can do this. And so maybe you're going to have fewer and smaller goals for the first couple of months of the year. If you have already come off of a banner year, you're excited, you can't wait to get going on the next year, it's interesting. I'm learning that I'm kind of a neuroscience geek. I love all this stuff. I can't learn enough of it. And what seems to be true in general of the human brain is that if you have a big goal and you reach 90% of it, you've actually accomplished more than if you have a smaller achievable goal that maybe you reach 99 or 100% of. So that's an interesting, but you have to think of where you started the year emotionally, since writing is an emotional task.
The sort of context of of expectation, I guess it is. But
right.
I think just one point I want to make as you go along here. First of all, we should say that you are doing a handout. Is that going to contain these bullet points?
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is because the electronic PDF can be as long as I want it to be, I'm going to have some of these bullet points, and then I've got another kind of 2 pages of additional tips.
Okay, so I don't want people to think they've got to necessarily make notes during the interview. You can get the download, and we'll give you the URL at the end of the interview.
That's right.
One thing I think is really great about this straight away is that you plan to do things like go to your son or your daughter's football or whatever it is at school, rather than feeling it's an intrusion in your life when the time comes. It's something right from the beginning that's a priority for you, because you're only going to get one chance to see your child at that stage of life doing something. And so that's a really great way of looking at going to school and watching your child, rather than at the end of a busy day thinking, oh, now I haven't banked for this, I'm going to have to drag myself off to school and lose an hour. So it's a really positive health lifestyle thing, I think.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things having to do with that. I don't have kids, so these are not necessarily things that I've dealt with personally. But as I teach the class and somebody asks me a question, then I have to think, like, what is a good solution to this? So somebody had asked me a question having to do with their kids and everything. And I said, well, depending on how old they are and how much they understand about what you do and how your job is at home, versus, maybe the other parent's job is away from home, you can sit down with a family and find out for this year what are kind of the top 2 or 3 goals per person. So if Johnny's at an age where he just really wants, mom or dad to show up to every single game, and that's his thing, then maybe you're like, okay, I can show up to every single game, but half the games I need to also work at the same time. I'm going to be paying attention to you, but I'm not going to give you my undivided attention. Or I'll only go, maybe they're older and I'll only go to the home games. Or I'm going to go, you pick the 4 most important games, say you're in high school, the 4 most important games where you're just dying to beat this particular team. Those are the games I'm going to be there, no working, So you can do some kind of give and take with each person, because what's going to happen is, like in a different example, somebody was saying, my husband's recently retired and I can't get him out of my hair unless if he's doing what he wants to do, he's happy. But if I'm doing what I want to do, he wants to do something else with me. And I said, well, okay, try to figure out some times where there's a thing that he wants to do and you agree, he goes and does that, and then you get to have that writing time. And so instead of saying, well, in my case, my husband plays too many hours of video games, in her case, I think it was golfing, then I would say, okay, on the second and fourth Saturday, you get to play video games all day, and I won't say a word, and I get to write all day, and you won't come and bother me and ask me, to do things with you or for you or whatever, and then we'll have dinner and spend the evening together. So you're making plans where everybody gets to choose what they want to do that will make them happy, and you're getting more writing done in a way that nobody feels resentful of you taking what seems to be time away from them because you work at home.
I can hear some people thinking, where's the spontaneity in this?
Well,
is there space for this?
Yeah. So that's the thing. If you're going to plan to have a book a month done, I would be hard pressed to help you to find some spontaneity in that. If you want to get 2 books done this year, then and again, that was one reason why I said, maybe it could be your second and fourth Saturdays, or when you do these very specific planned events, and the other Saturdays are the what do we want to do? Let's just run off together or whatever. But there is. I definitely think that spontaneous doing things with friends, family, those are some of the things that give you that like boost of adrenaline and happy endorphins and stuff. And so this is a weird way to say it. I think you need to plan to have time for it.
Yeah. some allowance in the system for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense, and I can understand that. So I think there is probably a balance here, because the idea of having every minute of every day accounted for the next 12 months is, nobody really wants that, right?
No. And even if you tried to do it, it wouldn't work, and then you'd just be frustrated.
Yeah. So it's having that flexibility. Good. Okay.
Right.
How are we getting on through the list?
Yes. Okay. So after you've got your big list of all the things that you want to do, like how exactly would you get 3 books done this year on a list that has 12 months and 365 days. So then you can break anything that can be broken down into smaller pieces, particularly so that it'll fit into a month. But if you can get it broken down into pieces that fit into a week, then you can know when you're behind or when you're ahead. Because, okay, so by the end of February, I want to have the first draft of this book done. By the end of March, I want to have gotten the edits back from my editor. And depending on, let's just say it's a new series. Depending on how many edits it is, let's say I want to finish my edits by April 15th. But that means that I'm going to have also needed a book cover by the time I'm done with edits. Maybe we're thinking about, one more set of edits and then proofing. So by the way, okay, I need to plan that I've contacted somebody to start my book cover by, say, February 1st. So that you don't get to the point, this has happened to me, which is why I figured it out. If you wait until your book is done to start your cover, and you want this cover designer who's one of my cover designers, she has such a waiting list that I think right now she's booking people for June, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you need to be planning
Right. Planning the different steps. But when you break it down into these steps, it becomes much more manageable, and you can figure out, I understand this is the deadline for just this one step. So let's say that, you're like my friend whose son was in the ER all night, and, she lost at least a day, and say this was going to be her big writing day. Well, then she just needs to sort of look at one of the other things that I suggest is that you plan in, how, if you had one of those outside jobs, you might get 12 paid holidays a year and 5 paid sick days a year or something like that, plus vacation days. So I always suggest using that as kind of a guide and giving you some free space, so you can't plan all 365 days. It also gives you the ability, I think 2 years in a row, I planned a mental health day every month. So it was a day for me to go do anything I darn well wanted.
Cool, I like that day.
Yeah. So sometimes I went to the movies and I saw 2 or 3 movies in a row, and sometimes I went
Cool.
hiking, and sometimes I went to lunch with a friend. Yep. And those are the things that will keep us from getting exhausted and overwhelmed, because we aren't computers.
Yep.
All right. So
I think that's a really, just pause on that one for a second, because I think that's a really important thing for those of us who work for ourselves, whether you're an author or, in our case, doing this stuff as well. There is a real danger of working all the time.
yeah.
And that's something I definitely suffer from. And I'm really going to take on board this idea of planning like a day occasionally of just not working, because I'm really not very good at that at all.
too.
And whilst I might take myself off to the cinema in the evening with a friend, or occasionally during the day, it's a long time since I'm going to go and see Star Wars next week during the day, but that's like once every 2 years when a Star Wars film comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty certain I work for myself, and all the freedoms you get with that, except I probably get less annual leave than somebody who works in a 9-to-5 job, because they will take their 25 days as you get in the UK.
Right.
And I don't. So yeah, that's a good one. I think that for everyone listening who works for themselves, that's an important one.
And I think it'll help no matter where you're at in life and how many people are an immediate part of your life. I think that it'll help everybody to be happier. And honestly, every time that we're happier, more joyful, more enthusiastic about life, the people around us are naturally going to feel that pouring back onto them. So that just makes everybody happier, and which in my mind makes it an actual important, an important part of life to make sure is part of your life.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so
Good.
so we've broken it down into pieces. Now we're going to figure out which of these pieces belong in which month. You probably have some idea of, what month you're going to take the family vacation. You need to also keep in mind birthdays and anniversaries. Which ones are the ones that are going to require more time? Like if your kids are at that age where they're going to have, 25 little kids over and there's going to be a bouncy castle or, a clown or whatever. We all know that takes way more time and planning than we thought when we started it the week before the birthday party.
Yeah.
I just did that with my husband's 50th birthday. We went to Disney World and it took a lot of time and planning. And then all that work I wasn't doing in the 2 months beforehand because I was planning it, and then like you said, going to the gym, it's not just 40 minutes. So going away on vacation is not just 1 week.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
And then also, I think you've been doing a lot of traveling, and at different times of the year, I do a lot of traveling. When I started realizing, because again, you're keeping track of what, not just distractions, but what else is keeping you from writing during time that you had marked out to be writing time. And I found that the amount of time that it took me to get packed up and ready to go on a trip and then get unpacked and get myself back into normal life after a trip was 1 to 2 days on each side, depending on how long the trip was. So I started just putting that on my calendar. If I got some writing done, yay, bonus.
Yeah.
Then you start, again, now you're thinking about how you can make your mind be more confident and feeling like it's doing for yourself what we say we should do for customers, which is under promise and over deliver.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we want to do that.
Again, it's back to managing your own expectations, of almost tricking yourself into feeling happy that you've done something.
Exactly. And then 2 other things that I think are hugely important, and one can also be related to being important for tax purposes. I think that everybody should track their accomplishments. However you want to do it. I actually started using a journal. We're writers, and so people have a tendency to give us these cool journals, and we have a stack, and how am I going to get through them all? And I took one quite a few years ago now. I took one and thought, I'm going to start writing down what I have gotten accomplished, because we had been doing all this moving, and I felt like I was never getting anything done. I specifically remember the year that my husband was in the motorcycle accident, thinking, work-wise, that was the most wasted year ever. And then thankfully I had already been working on this done journal, and I went back and I read all the things that I did accomplish. Under the circumstances, it was shocking. I was like, oh, well, good on me. But if I hadn't written it down, I wouldn't have known that I should be happy and content, with the amount that I got done. And also it will help you to see, sometimes people are like, but I don't know how long it takes me to write a book. I mean, you're still in the place where you're trying to figure out how long it takes you to write a book, right? 10
to 20 years, I'd guess.
That seems to be average for book one.
Yeah.
But as you and every year, things change. You get better at some things. You learn new things. When you're kind of keeping track, even a little bit about, it takes me about 6 months to write a solid first draft of this kind of book, but it only takes me 2 months to write a solid first draft of that kind of book. That is good information that you wouldn't have known if you hadn't been tracking it. Now, I'm not sure about in the UK and other places, but in the United States, in that beginning part when you're between 0 and now I'm making enough money for it to be a real, I apologize if sometimes I'm trying to figure out, I'm talking so fast.
To pay the mortgage.
Yeah, when you can pay the mortgage.
Live off it, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So somewhere in there, you're putting on your taxes, that you have these expenses, and you're showing, an awful lot of time loss at the very beginning. And at some point to just know that the IRS, couldn't be mad at you, couldn't come back to you. If they did audit you, you've got this journal of every single day that you've worked and all the things that you've done on those days. And if all that work that you've written down is in fact related, to the kind of career that you're in, then it's kind of your security blanket, from a tax viewpoint. But also, I think that the mental sense of accomplishment is the big part.
Yes.
And then leading off of that, this is the other thing that too many of my friends have too much of a problem with. So I really want all the listeners to pay attention. You need to plan your rewards. And you can't wait for publishing a book to be your reward, because James, you've been working on yours for a little while. I think it took me 7 or 8 years from the time that I first started writing down the idea to Little Miss Lovesick to the day it actually showed up on Amazon. I mean, I'd written a whole bunch of drafts of that book, but nonetheless, that's a long time. And if I had waited 8 years to reward myself, then I'm not really sure how I would have kept on going, because I'm kind of reward centric. So you're looking for times when you can say, okay, if I meet my deadlines this week, I get an ice cream or whatever.
Okay.
If I'm able to get ahead of my deadlines for the month and I have this extra day, we're all going to the amusement park, the whole family, or whatever it is that you like and whatever matters to you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything, that costs money or anything, but something where, and not just doing it, but say, we're doing this because I just finished the first draft, or I just finished the final draft, or I had a goal to get 3 books out in the series. The 3rd one just came out. This was a big goal for me. It took me X amount of months or years to get it done. And this is the reward, because it changes things in your brain, and it helps your brain to understand the things that are important to you, because you're making a note of them and you're celebrating them, and you're making like these positive thoughts and feelings come out of having done this thing. And it actually helps your brain to wire itself in a way where it's like, oh, because your brain, it's just the way it's made for whatever reason, and thank you God, it wants to be happy and it wants you to be happy. So when you say, I'm happy I did this, then your brain says, oh, well, we can do more of that. So I really think this is an important part. Yeah.
A virtuous circle.
Yeah, exactly. Because then, think of the excitement that happens when you do get some sort of sense of accomplishment and you notice it and say it and celebrate it a little bit. And then it kind of makes you go, oh, I just want to go do more now.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
Kitty. Helpful. Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Yeah. I don't know have you got more of the actual list to go through, or?
You know what? Yeah, it's a month-long class. I have probably more information than we can cover today.
Well, we're going to. You've very kindly put together this PDF, which we'll give out. In fact, let's come up with the URL in the time-honored fashion of SPF. I make up a URL, which I say in an interview, and then we have to stick to it because I've said it. So we're going to come up with self-publishing formula / time management. Okay, so all one word, time management. There you go. And people will know what that is. And you go there and you can get Kitty's PDF. I want to ask you a little bit about your nonfiction side of things, how you've developed this expertise, and hopefully it's part of your business as well. I think you've got an online course, you've got a book.
Yeah. So again, with the whole moving an awful lot, I was trying to figure out, I love to teach. I taught at a college doing software classes for a little while, and I found out that the teaching part is actually the only part I love.
Okay.
So I had to figure out, how can I do this in a way where I can walk away at the end of the day and there are no meetings and, no accreditation boards to come to and that sort of thing. So basically, it just became a matter of, I'm moving. I was supposed to speak to this group, and now I can't speak to this group because I'm moving to another country or something. And the whole Yahoo group thing had been so popular for a while. And the Romance Writers of America, an awful lot, like I don't know how many, but so many chapters of that organization had started doing online classes as kind of some fundraising for them to cover just the costs of their meeting room and, different things that they do. And so I had been helping people with things, and then somebody said, will you teach this class for us at RWA and you get half of the proceeds? And I'm like, well, that sounds fun. And then the more I taught, the more I liked it, and the more I was getting really good feedback. But then, after a while, technology changes, but not necessarily all the organizations change with it. And I wanted to do a lot more than just email lectures. And so I decided to start my own website where I could use video and live video. In fact, I'm going to do a live video segment of my class for the first time in January 2018, where in addition to the videos that you're watching and the lectures that you can get printed, because everybody learns a different way. So some people with audio, some people with video, some people, want to read it and mark it up and highlight it. But I'm going to have a 4-hour live session online where it's similar to this. We're just dialing into a website on the browser and we go through everything, but we're doing it at that moment. So by the end of that session, you should be well on your way to actually having things marked out on your calendar so that you can at least get started, even though the class will continue to go on, for several weeks after it.
Yeah. So you have this as a paid online course?
Yes. I started again. It's just always one of those things where somebody asks you for information, and after a while, you've been asked enough. You're like, I should do something. So I had started this workshop called Right Now Workshop, WRITE, Right Now Workshop, in 1998, because I was in a writers group where there was all these people who knew a ton of stuff, but it was such a great writers group that there's new people coming in all the time, but then they didn't know anything. And so we needed to catch them up. And so once a year I would have all the old people teach all the new people things, and then it just kept on going. So I've got rightnowworkshop.com has this time management class on it. I've done a self-publishing class several times, but I haven't been happy with making it as the people that I've been reaching out to for the self-publishing, or the people who have been reaching out to me, are a little bit scared of technology. And I've been trying to figure out a way to teach it in a way that they can be as comfortable and confident as possible. So I'm redoing that class some more. And then I've taught classes on, 7 ways to market without spending any money. And, just whenever you know how it is, either you're asking questions of somebody that you think, knows the answers, or vice versa. And I just love to teach. So, in fact, I've been teaching these 8th graders and they're so fun. They're just so enthusiastic. So how old are 8th
graders for a UK
so 8th graders, that's
like
12, 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're just so on fire. They come up with these ideas about, volleyball teams on the moon. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. So I think I'm going to do something like a free class for young people too, just how to get started writing, because it's just fun.
Yeah.
So that's
Kitty,
me. I can't help myself.
That is you. And it's infectious. And it's been, the classic SPF podcast interview that we always want is one that's entertaining, but also people take some value away from. It's been absolutely down the line. You have.
I'm so
I knew
glad.
you would be. So it's been brilliant. And we've racked up 40 odd minutes very quickly. Oh my
goodness. I was trying to talk faster. Sorry.
And I don't know if I budgeted for that today in my
well, we'll have to cut out all of my jokes.
Yeah, no, we're keeping them in. In fact, that was the last point I was going to make, really, is I think treating time like you would treat your accounts, or you treat another aspect of your life, like your bank balance. There's no sensible reason why you would not do that. And we have a budget. I do the budget for SPF, and we look at it every month and we see where we are. Why on earth don't you do that with time? And exactly what the way you've laid it out gives you that ability to do that. Even if that means after 2 months into the year, your year's not going to be what you planned it to be. But that's okay, because you know that, and you can make changes, you can manage your expectation.
Yes, exactly.
So, great. Good. Well, I feel quite inspired by this, Kitty. Thank you very much indeed. That
so
URL
glad.
again, I should say, is selfpublishingformula.com/time management, all one word. And I think I've got this right. You're going to throw in a little sweetener for your online course?
I am. You and Mark and the team have always been so great about giving out so much helpful information that I and so many people have gotten, that I was trying to figure out how I could do the same. So the class is normally $150, but I'd like to give anybody who's listening a $50 off coupon, and we'll put that on the PDF.
Super.
So just as long as you've got the PDF, there'll be a code or something right on there. And then the class starts January 15th, 2018. But if I have too many people, because I like to keep it small so I can help each person individually, I'll just open a second class in February.
Okay, that's superb, Kitty, and we really appreciate that. So this is actually unusual for us. I'm doing the interview here where it is 14th, 15th of December. I don't know where we are,
Yeah.
and it's going out very soon, so in a couple of weeks. So people will get this very quickly. Brilliant. Thank you so much indeed, Kitty. Whereabouts are you then? So
Thank
you're
you.
traveling a lot. Where are you now?
Yeah, so right this second, I'm in Southern California. It's near Temecula, which is in between Los Angeles and San Diego.
Oh, sounds a
we
nice part
just
of the world
moved-
there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Today it's supposed to be like 27 degrees. I'm like, this is not Christmas weather.
No. Well, it's 3 here, so.
Right. Well, and my husband's been interviewing with a company in Sweden, so who knows? Maybe I'll be around to your side.
There's been some snow there as well. Okay, Brilliant. Well, Kitty, thank you so much indeed. Stay in touch with SPF because it'd be great to have you nearby, and we'll revisit this at some point in the future. So thank you so much indeed for coming on.
Thanks so much, James. Really appreciate you guys.
Kitty Bucholtz. It's quite difficult. It's actually it's spelt Bucholtz. I don't think I would have guessed Bucholtz.
No, I wouldn't have guessed that either.
But it is. But anyway, there's somebody who's thought long and hard and worked through this grind, and she has an infectious enthusiasm for life as well, which is great. A couple of things really sort of came home to me. One of the things was, I worked 9-to-5 jobs or worked for somebody else up until 2013 when I quit that, and you were a little bit after that. And actually, I'm still in an adjustment period to working for myself where you don't get 25 days annual leave. And you always took that, didn't you? If you had a job and you get 25 days, I think we got more than that at the BBFC. You took every single day, and sometimes you tried to sneak 1 or 2 more. As we work for ourselves, no one gives us annual leave days. We book a holiday here and there, but actually pretty bad at taking holiday. Pretty bad at taking days off, and it would be really interesting to count up how many days we actually do take off. So that's something that's definitely worth thinking about, taking a day off here and there, and just cutting work out for 24 hours. And yeah, so it's generally I thought Kitty had a really good way of approaching, and it was. I did take it up with her. That it's quite methodical and not so romantic and not very spontaneous to plan. Well, I'm going to do something spontaneous, plan your spontaneity type thing. But there's a lot to be said for having some thought going into it in advance to allow yourself to have that time, rather than this constant feeling in your head that you're running to catch up, which is probably where you and I are most of the time, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel that way. Yeah, so no, it's definitely something that I can improve on. I think a little bit of structure is a good idea, but it's got to be melded with spontaneity as well, and also flexibility, because things come up all the time across all different business parts of the business that we run, writing and SPF as well, that require fairly fast adapting to new circumstances. So it is something that you need to have that also. But I think a bit more structure is probably not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, although I think you are somebody who likes this sudden idea and implementation.
Yeah,
I thrive on that.
I do. Yeah, if I think of something, I don't like waiting for a week to do it. I like to do it immediately. And fortunately, that's the way we work quite well like that with the SPF side of things. I can come up with something that might sound a bit crazy, and then we'll try it. We don't need to ask anybody else, which is it's a different podcast, and that it's nice to be your own boss. That's true for writers as well. You can pivot very quickly and try something else. It could be something to do with advertising or promotion or even writing. You can do that without having to go and get things signed in triplicate by 3 different bosses who all will disagree. So we have much more flexibility, but then at the same time, that flexibility needs to be married to a bit of structure as well.
Yeah, interesting about that is I think that we do something naturally that big companies are trying to do now. This friend of mine who works for a big supermarket chain in the UK. It's quite senior with them. He said they're doing this, and I described how we worked. So they're trying to get to the stage where you have an idea, you implement it, but you don't do what you've just said. You don't ask 15 people for permission. And it might not be a fully formed idea and it might not work, but you still do it. You just go ahead and do it, which is how we operate. And they know startups and the agile companies and Facebooks, all the rest of it, operate like that. But big companies find it very difficult to do that, and they feel that they're a disadvantage because of that in this modern world. So we can do something that they think is a bit of witchcraft and they're trying to implement. But and that, I guess, doesn't lend itself necessarily to time management. But although the way Kitty describes it, you could plan in around that sort of thing as well. So I think it's definitely horses for courses. And the PDF, I think, is something that if you go through, you'll be able to implement the bits of it that are going to work for you. So just a reminder, you can get that selfpublishingformula.com/time management. And on that is that discount voucher for $50 off Kitty's course. Good. I keep noticing when your hand comes into view, have you been in a nightclub?
Yeah, I went to a concert on Saturday and I won't come off.
You went to a concert with young people where you get a stamp on your hand?
Yeah, I know. I felt like being back at university again. I went to see EMF. So there we go. There's a real.
That's unbelievable.
Blast. It was unbelievable. A real blast from the past. Yeah, so in East London on Saturday night, which was very entertaining, and then on Sunday I had a fairly nasty delayed reaction hangover. So whilst you were snorting into your tissue,
yes, I've had man flu.
Yeah, I had a self-inflicted wound, so no sympathy for me. But yeah, it was nice. It was good.
Good. Well, I'm pleased you got out. So
it doesn't happen often.
No. You went. Hang on. You went to somebody else, didn't you? With the.
I saw Depeche Mode.
Depeche Mode, yeah. So you're always out. Good. Okay. Thank you, Kitty, for our interview this week. Welcome to 2018. Thank you for our first 100 episodes. We have selected our book lab person, and we're working in the background on that. So that's going to come out soon. But stay part of the Patreon process if you would like to be. Stay a Patreon supporter, I should say, if you'd like to be chosen for the next one. We're looking forward to that in the next few weeks. I think that's it. Mark, got anything else to say on 100th episode?
No, I would say Happy New Year to everyone. So I hope you've had a great. What are you doing?
Well, I was gonna show these. I finally got these pictures. Look, they've arrived. God. But one of our
you look good, and I look like a paedophile.
Our listeners did, and I love mine. Even though obviously it's a caricature on my nose, which I am aware is not the smallest nose, is exaggerated, but that's okay. That's a character. This is hilarious. I mean, he actually said that he preferred working on this one because it was more fun for him. As I think I described it as a tramp who's found a gun.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's also pretty good.
Yeah, so we should say thank you. I can't remember his name. It's terrible of me. And I can't decipher the signature at all. I will give a proper shout out. Thank you so much indeed for sending it. Mark and I are quietly thrilled about those, so thank you very much indeed.
Well, you are.
I am. I'll keep yours then.
Throw darts at it.
I just think I think the problem with you, Mark, is you're not prepared to confront what you really look like.
No, that's very true. Yeah, thanks for that.
Right, I'm dying. I need to go and dose up on vitamin C again, and we'll be back next week with another guest and another episode of the Self-Publishing Formula podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great
Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Self-Publishing Formula podcast. Visit us at selfpublishingformula.com for more information, show notes, and links on today's topics. You can also sign up for our free video series on using Facebook ads to grow your mailing list. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.